Diva, Duchess, or just simply maligned? As ever, I'd love to know what you think. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. A very, shall we say, hay fever at London today. Apparently, I don't know if you ever find this, I watched the weather report today and it said, oh, you know, it's going to be marvellous, basking in sun, we wouldn't need an overcoat, all that sort of stuff. You know, I don't need to tell you, do I? You come out, it's been nothing but rain, high hay fever, reasonably chilly. And you kind of think now, with all this technology in the world today, you would be able to predict whether, particularly here in the very heart of London, it's going to be sunny, basking, spring-like. As ever, back to your breaking royal story of the day. Now, this particular building behind me here is literally part of royal history. You know, as I often say here on the show, I love going around London. I love finding these places to share with you. You know, it's so important that we share each other's history because it's fascinating. And I don't know, you know, do you ever read books and see films and think, what was that place? And also when you look at pictures, they always look far more glamorous than when you actually get here. This particular place, Bryanston Court, literally was the former home, the flat of the much maligned, many people might say, similar to a Duchess of today, Duchess Meghan, Wallis Simpson. This particular address carried the address from all of those letters from the then king to Wallis Simpson, basically detailing his outline about how he wanted to quit the monarchy and start a brand new life with her. If she couldn't become his queen, then simply he wasn't going to stay in the job. Sound familiar? Do you know what I mean? And what's interesting here is it was recently up for sale and somebody else has now bought it. But a little bit before that, they were planning to put up a blue plaque. Now, blue plaques, as you know, are a particular fascination to me. Love looking at them, love thinking who walked through those doors, whether they went shopping, collected the milk, all of that sort of stuff. And they were going to put up a blue plaque in memory of the fact that Wallis Simpson lived here. Now, I don't know about you, but I found this particularly fascinating because on the one hand, it is an historical area. You know, when you think about it, it's incredible. But also, a lot of people are saying, well, there's some reasons as to why a lot of people are against the blue plaque. And as ever, let me explain. This is the flat where Mrs. Simpson began seeing Edward. This is where the twice married American socialite Mrs. Wallis Simpson was staying when she first began seeing the future king in 1933. And as I said, many of her love letters carry that address. Now, Edward became king when his father, George, died in January 1936, but abdicated after only 11 months in the job in order to marry Mrs. Simpson. He had been advised by the then Prime Minister, Stanley Baldwin, that the public would not accept his bride as queen. However, the wedding went ahead in 1937, and the couple became known as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. The bigger problem was that over here at this flat, allegedly, as ever we have to say, the Duke and Duchess did entertain perhaps Nazi sympathisers. And this is one of the reasons why there's going to be no blue plaque. A lot of people basically, you know, say, well, she was much maligned. Could be said, of course, by some people that could be the simple case for the Duchess now in the headlines, Meghan Markle. But unlike Meghan, you see, Wallis Simpson really did keep her own counsel, never gave any interviews, didn't really reveal much. It was always friends that let things out, and never really badmouthed the British monarchy. She had a difficult time with Edward once he stopped being king because he wanted to be treated like the king. Of course, as time moves on, things thaw. And relations indeed did thaw in 1972 when the former king passed away. Of course, as we now know, senior members of the British monarchy did reach out and offer condolence. And even, of course, when Wallis's death was in 1986, it was said that most of the senior monarchy did respect the fact that, above all else, she had remained very discreet. Fascinating to think, isn't it, though, that it was right here that the king of the time would have his valet park his car just a little bit off Edgware Road and then casually walk up. Now, this may have been the 1930s, but the tabloid press was simply on it. They didn't have the technology that they have today to be able to take indiscreet pictures of him arriving and leaving, but it was all detailed. And the bigger problem was that the BBC, the boss, should I say, of the BBC at the time, Lord Reith, simply did not want this sort of thing broadcast on the airwaves. But he had to relent, simply because the British public demanded to know exactly what was happening with their king. And as I say, there are live broadcasts from outside this store of that particular period. Fascinating to think that the tabloids would have been all outside this store, along with live commentary. And it just goes to show, as I often say here on the show, that truly nothing is new. But if you are a royal fan and you want to look into some of the, some might say, darker side of history, then this is definitely a stop off for you. Literally just off Edgware Road, called George Street. And as I say, right here is where royal history was made. Now, will we be saying the same thing, perhaps in 70, 80 years' time, about the mess that we're now looking at with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? As ever, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.